Hey everybody, this is Angie and I'm with Blue Ridge Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make a stained resin dish that looks like stained glass. So we're going to get started here, and the first thing we need to do is get our measuring cup, and this I just ordered off of Amazon. You will find out through my videos that I am a bargain hunter and I recycle. So with that being said, I'll show you some tips along the way of how to save money, because we all know how expensive resin is. So let's get started. First, we're going to measure our resin, and I use America's Best Premium Epoxy Resin. I hope you can see that. And what I do is Blue Ridge Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make a stained resin dish that looks like stained glass. So we're going to get started here, and the first thing we need to do is get our measuring cup, and this I just ordered off of Amazon. You will find out through my videos that I am a bargain hunter and I recycle. So with that being said, I'll show you some tips along the way of how to save money, because we all know how expensive resin is. So let's get started. First, we're going to measure our resin, and I use America's Best Premium Epoxy Resin. I hope you can see that. And what I do is I order this by the gallon. It comes a half a gallon of the part A and a half a gallon of the part B, and it's 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm going to start here with pouring 4 ounces of the part A, which is the thick part. So I'm looking at my little measuring line here, and that looks like right at 4 ounces. And I just get a little wipey here, and I use baby wipes. So I want to wipe this off so we don't make them go mess here today. And I'll wipe this so it won't leak everywhere. And as you can see, it's just a smudge over 4 ounces here. So I'm going to do the same with the part B, America's Best. And we're going to measure on top of this. And we're just going to get just a little tippy tad over, since we was just a tippy tad over on our part A. We want to get as close as we possibly can. Number one, because if you don't, it will not mix correctly, and you'll have soft resin or resin that doesn't harden correctly. But number two, we all know how expensive resin is, and we do not want to waste it on a product that we cannot use. So then we're going to stir, and I will fast forward through this, but I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. Sometimes it doesn't take a whole 5 minutes, but I like to set the timer just to kind of get where I'm at, and we'll go from there. And we'll start doing it slow. I know we want to all hurry, but you have to do it nice and slow so that we don't get any more bubbles than we absolutely have to. So, and you want to make sure and scrape around the sides and get the bottom. I like to leave my stick in like this so that I don't pull it out of the resin and create more bubbles. So I don't pull my stick all the way out, just a couple of times to scrape the stick, because it will get on your stick and won't get mixed up in there, and we don't want that. So I'm going to stir this, and I will fast forward through this so you won't have to sit and watch me through this torture. We all know this is the worst part of doing resin. So I will fast forward through this, but in the meantime, we're going to get this stirred up good, and we'll be back. See that there's not any swirlies or anything. It's all mixed up pretty good here. You will still have some bubbles, but I like to sit mine over to the side and let it rest for just a few minutes, maybe up to 5 minutes. Sometimes I set my timer again and do it all over again and let the 5 minutes sitting time. So here we have our mold to do our little stained glass dish with. Number one, I have a little plastic platter, and this comes from the Dollar Tree. It costs $1, and I like to use these because they're plastic and they're kind of sturdy, and they hold when I have to move these to my drying space. So, and then I have just a regular paper plate. I think I probably got it at the Bilo because that's the grocery store that we have here. And then I have just a piece of plastic, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is something came wrapped up in this. It was a bag, and I just opened it up into a little plastic sheet here that we're going to pour our mold into. And then I'm going to show you the ink that we're going to use. And today we're going to use alcohol ink. And this is the alcohol ink that I'm using today. And I'm going to list a link of all the products that I'm using, because when I watch videos, I see women use, and gentlemen too, use items, and I'll be like, doggone, where did that come from? So I want to list a link of where I get the items that I use. So if you want to get those, you can too. But here's the alcohol ink that I'm going to use today. And the colors I'm going to use are going to be grape, fuchsia, turquoise, and kiwi. I think that'll make a nice little stained glass looking item here. So those are the colors I'm going to use. So what we do first is we're just going to pour our resin clear into our plate. And make sure it covers the whole area as evenly as possible. And scrape all of that out, because we all know how expensive resin is. So let's get all of that goody out of there. Let me say this while we're on the subject of resin. I showed y'all where I set my clock for 5 minutes. Most of the time, it takes about 3 to 3.5 minutes for my resin to be stirred completely. It varies though. I'm in South Carolina. As you may can tell by the accent, I am a Southern girl. But the colder that it gets, the more you need to work with your resin, because when it's hard or thick, like the part A is real thick, by the coldness, it takes longer to work that through the hardener. So the part B. So I'm going to scrape all of this off of here into the plate. And as you can see, there are a few bubbles here. And we're going to set this over out of the way. So I'm going to take my little hot gun and just get a few of those bubbles out of our way. They're not too bad. But since this is a stained glass, just very gently, just go over it. If you see any bubbles, just don't get too close and heat your resin up too much, because it will heat it up, especially when the weather's warm outside. I've learned that the hard way. And again, being in South Carolina, it gets hot and humid here. But today is the day after Thanksgiving, so it's probably a mild 60-something degrees outside today. I'm not really sure. So it's not too awful bad. It's kind of pleasant. So the resin is about as good as it can be. This is kind of the temperature it kind of really likes. So I'm going to wait just a few seconds here. And then I'm going to zap it one more time with the heat gun before we add our alcohol ink. Now, so just go over it kind of evenly. not too much. Just kind of getting most of the bubbles out. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have a little problem here with my table leaning a little bit because all the weight is on the back side of it. So I just like to put a little thing on there to make sure everything goes in here nice and even. So what I'm going to do is, well, this is brand new, so I'm going to open this is what I'm going to do. And let's snippy the top off of this. And we're going to put just a drop or two, just anywhere. Okay, and that is the grape. Ooh, pretty, pretty, pretty. And let's see this fuchsia. Have we used it? Nope. Let's snippy that. Seem to get more on my hand than I do on the plate. Which reminds me, I know that I should be wearing gloves, but I have a little problem with arthritis in my fingers, and it's hard sometimes for me to feel through the gloves what I need to be doing. And so, because a lot of things, if you've been working with crafts for a while, you have to feel it, and it's hard to feel if you don't, if with fingers that are, you know, already swollen and don't want to move really good. So we're just going to add a couple of drops in here. And then lastly will be the kiwi. This must be a brand new set because none of these were been opened before, but that's okay. We'll open them up. And we're going to put drops everywhere we don't see other drops. So I'm going to let that sit for just a second while I get out my trusty baby wipes. And I buy these by the bunches at the Walmart. I kind of like the Huggies myself just because they come out one at a time and don't pull out the whole box with them. But, you know, everybody has their own opinion, and if you've got better ideas, I'm always willing to listen to better ideas. So we're going to look at that for just a second here and see what it's going to do. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning with the grape and put another little drop in there because it started to fade just a little bit. So each little grape spot that we did, I'm going to add one more drop to it. We want, purple's my favorite color, and I really, 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 really want that to show up. And then we'll do the same with the fuchsia. Just go back and add one more drop in there. We want to make sure that pretty fuchsia shows up in our stained glass. Wait just a second, see how the turquoise is going to do, because I'm sure we're going to have to add a drop or two of that. And let's just put in one here. Be sure, friends, when you're doing this, that you have color at your edges. And we'll see why a little later. It's important to make sure and get those edges. And then lastly is the kiwi. And we're just going to put the drop of kiwi right here. Maybe spread this one out there a little bit. Make sure it gets that edge real good. Now, here comes the fun part. This very important tool that I have purchased that everybody needs when they're working with resin is a toothpick. That's right. I don't know. There was 100 of these in the pack for $1 at the Dollar Tree. How crazy is that? I told you I'm a bargain hunter. So we're going to get this and we're just going to make swirlies. Oh, yeah. Just swirly. Make sure you get it all. And then you don't want to do too much because you don't want to muddy the colors and mix them. You just want to swirl it so that they can kind of intertwine a little bit. Now, wipe that toothpick off. And we're going to turn our plate this way. And we're going to swirl the other way. Not big and not deep, just enough to create some swirls in there. There we go. And there we go. And that's all you have to do. So I am going to put a cover on this so no bugs or gnats. Gnats are horrible in South Carolina right now. So, and stink bugs. If anybody knows what stink bugs are, if you're from the South, you know what a stink bug is. So I just want to make sure I get all my color up to the edges here. And I'm going to leave this alone because I have a habit of working with it too much sometimes and then tend to muddy it some, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave this alone, and I'm going to let this sit for probably 2 hours, and then I'm going to come back and check it and see if it's ready. We want it to be tacky, but when you touch your finger to it, just on the edge, you don't want the color to come off on your finger. So we're going to leave it, and I'll be back with you in a couple hours, and we're going to check it until it's ready, okay? Thank you for joining, and we'll be back in just a little bit.